Well, welcome. It's time for Vickery. Come on in for a visit. Come on in and join me. Have a seat. Make yourself at home. We got a great story to tell you today about a friend of mine. He's now deceased, and his ordeal in World War II. Colonel Glenn Frazier was a guest many times on my radio show, and Colonel Frazier wrote a book called Hell's Guest. Now, I got to explain that to you. What happened was, at 17 years of age, Glenn Frazier joined the Army. He lied about his age because he couldn't legally join until he was 18. But by the time he was 18 years of age, he was in a battle, and the Americans lost the battle to the Japanese, and the Japanese captured over somewhere between 60,000 and 80,000 Filipinos and American soldiers. And what they did was they were going to march them, the Japanese, to a port which was 60 miles away. And it was known in 1942 as the Bataan Death March. Colonel Frazier, at the age just had turned 18 at that time, was one of the soldiers to make that march. It was an 8-day, 7-night, 60-plus mile walk. And unfortunately, between 15 and 18,000 of that number perished on the trip. Because here's what would happen. If you fail, you were run over by a motorized vehicle of the Japanese. It was one of the most notorious crimes in the history of any war. Colonel Frazier was taken to this port. He survived the march, put on a ship, and sent to Japan for a concentration camp. The service people, the Army, did not know if he was alive or dead. Neither did his family. And he spent almost 4 years in this concentration camp. After the war, when he was released, he showed back up, and they had basically said he was missing in action. But here he was. He did not leave the service. He remained in the service, worked his way to become a sergeant. Now, I tell you all that because he had developed a tremendous hatred and bitterness toward the Japanese people. In fact, it affected almost everything he did. That's all he was consumed with it. So after he retired from the service, what he did was he made a decision he would go back to Japan, because he buried deep in his psyche was this strong, abiding hatred of the Japanese. He had to get rid of it. So what he did, he planned a trip to Japan to meet some of the people that had been in control of the concentration camps. And he did that. Now, here's a man who won a bronze medal and 4 Purple Hearts, but he was still filled with hate. And you know, one of the things we must understand, whatever area of our life is consumed with hatred and bitterness, and if we're not in the process of accepting forgiveness or giving forgiveness, it will block our success in that part of our life. Think about that. It blocks our success. You know, to make a transition from extreme hate and bitterness to complete forgiveness was not easy for Colonel Frazier. In fact, it took him some time, even after meeting with some of his captors. He was long and arduous in his effort to make the transition to forgive. But he did make that decision. And when he did, he found out that there was some joy in life. He had a feeling of well-being. It purposely changed his life. Why? Because he was willing to forgive. We face that ourselves sometimes. And I think in terms of if we want to have an experience of joy and happiness in our own life, not only sometimes do we need to forgive others, but you know what we need to do? We need to offer an act of forgiveness ourselves. Learning how to forgive is one of the toughest lessons we can learn. How are you doing in the area of forgiveness? Forgiveness involves both an attitude and action. We need to open the door. If you have something in your heart that you harbor against someone, who does that affect? Tell me, who does it affect most? It affects you. You see, by opening the door and sharing with someone, I want to heal this relationship. I want whatever I've done, I want to make amends for it. You know what? It may not change that person's heart, but you know what? It would change yours. We're in the season of forgiveness and Thanksgiving. And I want you to know that if there's something that you need to change, that you need to ask forgiveness for, do it now. The right attitude leads to the right action, which leads to the right feeling. Because you know what? It makes a difference right here. I'm Lou Vickery. My brand is a wise word, the voice of generational wisdom. I'm an author of 24 books. I hope you'll check out this, what I've shared with you today. This story is in a book called Reach Beyond and Find Your Path to Success. You'll find it on page 213. So until we meet again, you keep a smile on your face, you keep happiness in your heart, and you keep optimism on your tongue. I'm Lou Vickery, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.